like,
Oh,
Hey, there's Rich.
God.
oh, you're with me.
You're just a small guy, you missed me.
What happens when you take those off?
How's your day, Cole?
That was long.
Yeah?
Wind got to me.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Were you working out?
I was.
Oh.
What were you doing?
Flying kites.
Fixing a truck, and I had a radiator hose blow in my semi, so it took me all day to get that straightened out. Just working on. Just getting covered when you're trying to pour the antifreeze into the thing, and the wind's blowing in your face. Like I wasted at least one.
You know, you just walked to the other side, you know that, right?
Well, it didn't work that way. A long ways over that radiator.
Well, it's 7 o'clock, so we'll call the meeting to order. Everybody's got an agenda. Is there any additions to the agenda?
Do we need to, is this where we address just any spelling mistakes or anything? Wispering
Well,
on
Well, we can-
6.3?
We could change that. Yeah, without an H.
Yeah.
Yes, we can get that updated for sure.
okay. So, anything else? Okay, so which Lyle moves it as amended. Okay, any discussion on Lyle's motion? Hearing none, I'll call the question in favor. It's carried unanimously. Okay, moving on to the minutes of the February 27th meeting. Any errors, omissions, questions?
I'll move those.
Okay, Judy moves them. Any discussion on Judy's motion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Anybody opposed? Seeing none, it's carried unanimously. Okay, moving on. We have a delegation from the Rowan House Society. Kelly, and you've got a helper, so.
I do. Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you. Okay. I don't fall off and go away. You never know. I'm at that lovely age where this is not an ally necessarily, so you're very clear, so that's good. So hello everyone, and thank you so much for having us today. My name is Kelly Smit, and I'm the Resource Development Team Lead for Rowan House Society, and this is our Executive Director, Lynette Sullivan. We've been in operation for 23 years, where Rowan House Emergency Shelter moved from a 2-bedroom facility, basement suite near Black Diamond Valley, to a 24-bed facility in High River. Originally named the Eagle Women's Emergency Shelter, the shelter was only large enough to house 2 women and up to 3 children each. We're here today to provide a short update on some of the supports we have available for the residents of Vulcan and how we can support you to make a difference for the people in your lives who may be affected by violence and abuse, or perhaps the constituents you may come across in your work.
So our symbol is the rowan tree, commonly known as mountain ash. You may ask why this rowan tree is our symbol. The berries often retained throughout the winter on the rowan tree symbolizes the endurance of life through the dark of the years, and tree itself was said to afford protection to the dwelling by which it grew. The rowan tree has traditionally been associated with peace, sanctuary, privacy, and beauty. The rowan tree embodies and symbolizes what we at Rowan House stand for, that every person is safe and secure and lives without violence and abuse. We are proud to have our rowan tree in the front yard of the Rowan House. We serve the 2nd largest geographic area in the province. The areas that we serve are the Foothills County, the Vulcan County, and MD of Little Creek. At Rowan House, we provide a continuum of trauma-informed programs and services to help break the cycle of domestic violence and abuse in our communities by providing crisis intervention, long-term support, and preventative education and awareness. In doing so, we work to fulfill our vision that we can all thrive in safe and empowering relationships. So one of the first things that probably comes to mind when you think of Rowan House is our short-term emergency shelter facility for women with or without children who have left violent and abusive situations or in need of a safe place to go. While this is our core mandate, we have grown to be much more than a short-term shelter with 24 beds. We have a 24-hour support line that provides telephone and text responses to all individuals seeking crisis support, information, or referrals to community resources that best suit their needs. The The 24-hour support line is also available in multiple languages through our Talk feature. We have a specialized children's program that only allows children to just be kids again, but trained staff provide them with tools for understanding their own big emotions and strategies for coping and healing. We also provide one-to-one support and advocacy in a community setting through our outreach program for all individuals who may need our services but not necessarily the shelter. The program is open to any individual, no matter what their gender identity or sexual orientation is. And of course, we work from an upstream approach as well by providing preventative education and awareness for youth in schools, healthy relationship groups, and trainings and workshops for the public. Lastly, our Safe at Home pilot project designed to be an alternative approach to serving families where the person who's perpetrating the violence and abuse is the one to move to a cool-down location and engage in programming while the individual and the children who are experiencing the abuse maintain the stability of their home and support networks.
We also have some new initiatives we've been working on, but before we focus on these highlights, I want to reiterate why these services continue to be so important. Despite seeing a strong improvement in the 2000s, the Statistics Canada report released this past October showed that police-reported family violence has increased for the 5th year in a row, while intimate partner violence specifically has increased for the 7th year straight. Meanwhile, Corporal Leon Beatty, the Domestic Violence Coordinator for the Southern Alberta District of the RCMP, reported that in a 7-month period in 2021, officers responded to over 2,300 occurrences of domestic violence in her coverage area. That doesn't include Calgary or Lethbridge, so big numbers. And these numbers do not factor in the occurrences that most definitely go unreported. And Corporal Beatty said that in her experience the number is high, and COVID played a role in worsening the problem. In 2022, Rowan House received 2,100 calls to our 24-hour support line. That was 600 calls total, up from just over 1,500 the year before. During that same time, we admitted 216 women and children, which was up from the 130 of the year before, bearing in mind that we were not at full capacity owing to our communal living environment for COVID. But it's still up significantly from 2019, where we housed 176 women and children, so 216 last year. So we are seeing a growing need, and as well as a growing severity in what our clients are dealing with in terms of the abuse and coping mechanisms, as well as greater mental health and substance overuse situations.
But moving forward to address all these complexities, thanks to a grant where we're able to have a dedicated court support worker available to assist the clients of our various programs through the court process and help them understand the different types of protection orders they can have implemented for their families. Which is really cool about this is that it just started in January, and we have had quite a few referrals and needs in the community, so we're really, really actually proud that we're able to now provide further support for the community. We also have a research and evaluation lead who is helping us ensure the data integrity and that all of our work is truly having the impact we hope and expect. We also have a shelter facility and safety advisor dedicated to enhance the safety of all our staff members, clients, and of course the community at large. And we continue to expand our preventative programs to empower the community to recognize the signs of domestic violence and abuse among your friends, family, and coworkers so that you can support them and direct them to the various services that are needed. We are pleased to offer lunch and learns workshops to anyone who's interested, as well as targeted trainings to industries that may more likely like to meet someone in need, like their hairdressers, pet groomers, nurses, and dentists. And finally, we know that not everyone has a lot of time to take these kinds of trainings, so we have an educational podcast anyone can take from the convenience or comfort of their home, car, walking path, and it is available for free. And we're actually so proud of the podcast. We are hoping we've elected the podcast for an award just because it's really hit, and it's actually not only, like I said, locally, it's actually hit internationally. And we're actually tracking some of the downloads. So if you get a moment, please check it out. The most recent one is about pet abuse and how it's linked to domestic violence and abuse, and it's with Constable Smit, who did a really great conversation piece with Allie. So very proud about that.
So all of these programs are accessible and offered at no cost, thanks to the generosity from the community. We do receive an annual grant from the government, the Alberta government, but it is restricted to our emergency shelter program and primarily ensures that we have a shelter support worker on duty 24/7 and able to answer our support line. And the Alberta domestic violence shelter sector hasn't seen an operational funding increase in 8 years and a staffing cost increase in 9 years. So the last increase in funding for domestic violence shelter staff wages was 2014-15. As you can imagine, we have had to make up that difference because we're not going to keep staff at 2014-2015 wages. The last increase in funding for domestic violence shelter operational costs was in 2015-2016. So again, there's a shortfall that we make up through our fundraising. Everything else that we provide, we have to fundraise through grants and donations. So our focus really is on collaborating with the community, from last year's Picnic with a Purpose, bringing organizations and businesses together, to being part of the Alberta Health Services Domestic Abuse Response Team, or DART. That is also located in the Vulcan Community Health Center and the emergency department, so we work with that staff. And our outreach team's participation in the Vulcan Regional Response to Elder Abuse Council. Like you, we want to do our part to ensure Vulcan remains a safe and great place to live and have a family. Everyone's path to addressing domestic violence and abuse in their life looks different, which is why we have so many options for help and why we are working to raise awareness about all those different options. Our hope is that after today's presentation you have a little more confidence about how to refer someone should they trust you to share what they're going through. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today, and we welcome any and all questions you might have.
Okay, any questions? Bob?
So your podcast, is that just the Rowan House Society?
Yes.
Is that
Yes, it is,
Okay.
absolutely. So you'll see the most recent one probably on our homepage, and then there is a section that's actually, I think it's linked to podcasts, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was on like Stitcher or listen to my other ones, and I just pulled yours up there. So
Awesome,
Yeah.
thank you so much, yeah.
You
that's
have
great.
the power.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's wonderful. I think you'll really find them, some of them are pretty hard to hear, but very important information at the same time. The ones we try to do at the end of December are more of a heartfelt and a kind of an experience of a client's success or a story of their change in their life that's happened throughout their journey. So we always try to end the year in a little bit more of a positive process, but yeah.
A lot of the information covers the gamut, right? From how to have legal support to how to what the recent one with pets. I mean, that's a big deterrent for people leaving a situation, is that they don't want to leave their pet behind because they know that would not be good for the pet, right? So there's so many complexities, and in a rural location, one of the hardest things that we encounter is access to transportation. If you're out in the middle of the farm with no way to leave, it's 30 below, you're not going anywhere.
Also, we do, sometimes we've had, from the urban centers, they'll say, well, just get a taxi. And we know that in some of the communities, taxis are not available after a certain period of time, which again, lessens that opportunity across the board. So I think that it's just really trying to raise awareness that the communities sometimes don't have all the resources that the urban centers think that we do. So how do we, let them know that?
Okay, any other questions?
I do want to say one thing that I feel we recently partnered with Shelter Movers. Shelter Movers. They are also an international group, and we're starting to come into Alberta, and they actually chose Rowan House as one of their communities. And I don't know any other rural communities that they have actually recently joined forces with, but they're going to support YW Edmonton, Rowan House, and they're looking for a third partner. And what Shelter Movers is about is safely moving individuals who are experiencing violence to a safe location. So it could be to the emergency shelter. They'll take their items, store it in a storage place until they're ready to move to another safe and affordable home. And we know that that's another huge barrier. So we're very, very proud about that. And it's supposed to start around, I think May is what the target time is. And so we'd love to stay tuned to hear about it, because I think it's going to make a huge difference for our clients in the community. They also will, and it's not something that they have done a lot, but if instead of always the person who's experiencing leaving the home, they will also support the person who's using abuse. They will kind of also support to have that person in a safe place as well, and remove the family in that period of time. So it's very creative, I would say, with it. So yeah, stay tuned for that.
Well, appreciate you guys, what you do. It's sad that we have to have organizations like yours in, 21st century, but yeah, I'm glad that there is, but it is sad that we do have to have these facilities for people that, are free in abuse, that's for sure. So, but anyway, thanks very much again for taking the time to come out.
And please always know we're here for the community of Vulcan. And if there's anything, always reach out to Kelly or myself or to our support line. We really want to make sure that we're available to support as best as we can.
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you for the water.
Oh, it's still there, good, good.
They moved in at 8 a.m.
Oh,
Yeah,
Yeah.
the Vulcaneers did get used in
I heard all about you actually, just so you know, I heard all about it.
Yeah, it was like you guys, yeah.
great, well, have a safe trip home. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
You're welcome. Nice meeting you.
Nice to meet you as well. Take care.
Take care.
Okay, well, we'll move on to the, great, thanks.
Thank you.
The correspondence and information items, so 5.1, the letter from the Minister from Municipal Affairs. Any questions on that one? And the next one's Grant Hunters. This is the one he supplies for the mayors and reeves. He does a great job. He admitted that the last mayors and reeves that he was a teacher in his previous life, and you can tell he does a great job of highlighting. Matter of fact, some of the other MLAs say that he's a tough one to follow. But is there anything in his that?
This is very interesting.
It is, and I did thank him at the Mayors and Reeves last time, and said that we have shared it with other groups and people, and he says definitely. I mean, he says this is information for the public, and I really wish that more of them did that type thing, got together and came up with a report. But he does a great job.
Super simple, easy to find what you're looking for.
Yeah, like he tries. I mean, last time, Will, you found a mistake in it, so I told him about it. Especially when he said he was a teacher, and I said, well, somebody found a grammar spelling mistake there, and he says, well, it's been a while, so he's a good guy. Any questions on his? Okay. If not, SouthGrow's, and again, we're fortunate enough that they do have. SouthGrow does send up information whenever they have something coming up. So they have a session coming up in this Alberta Economics Future.
And you're a speaker.
I am, I guess. I was supposed to go to the one over Claire's home, but it was cancelled, and so they asked me if I'd go to this one here. So, okay, and Martin Shields, he just thanked us for the letter that we sent. So we've heard from the federal government, but just as they acknowledged the receipt of our letter, and then provincial government was the letter that we received from last month, and then now from Martin saying, keep in touch with what's going on. But I don't know if they totally understand that, how the carbon tax affects municipalities so directly, and we have no way of collecting other than raising taxes. I mean, it's, sure they say, well, the ratepayer or residents get money back, but I mean, I don't know what everybody got, but I think ours was $287. And, that doesn't even cover your utilities at all. So, but anyway. I don't think it hurt for us to send a letter.
Yeah.
Hopefully we have a different federal government in a few minutes.
I'm sure. Anyway, moving on to the Sewa roadmap. Sherry from say, well, kind of put this together with the help of the executive. And so that, just where we've been, where we're going, and hopefully how we're going from there.
So have you been on that since 2009?
Yeah, but I missed a couple years there. But yeah, we were at the very original meeting that it was in the mall in Lethbridge, and that was a very original meeting. So we've been pretty well been involved in it ever since.
In the mall?
We had a meeting in the mall at the. It used to be the well, I think the bay's still in it, in the one end, but they have a.
It's where cereal was, isn't it?
Well, it was in the center part of the mall. They had a bit of an area where you could rent, and so they rented a spot there. So some of our members are still at Coaldale is another one that's been there since day one too, and a couple of other ones that came on the next couple of years. But anyway.
I wanted to know if is there any other facilities like this in Alberta or in Canada?
Well, yeah, like Edmonton has a facility, but theirs is more of a demonstration. Like they'll try different, things. And Burnaby has one. Burnaby burns a lot of household waste, but Durham, York is the one in Ontario. And then I just got a email from a guy from Prince Edward Island, and they're wanting to upgrade their facility. He just said that. Prince Edward Island. He said that I'm responsible for building a new 500,000 ton per year energy facility plant in PEI. The current plant has reached the end of its economic life at 40 years old and has a smaller capacity of 26,000 tons. I came across your article and your name, and I was hoping you could discuss it, so I forwarded it on to our group to talk about it.
Unless I'm misremembering, I did a tour of the new facility in Lethbridge. That's kind of exhibition park, and unless I'm misremembering, I was told they would have a small scale one for that building.
Yeah, I think they're and like in Europe, a lot of high rises will have a facility right in there that they. Yeah. But the biggest problem that we have in Alberta is that if you can't burn long enough hours to get your emissions down, so that's why you have to have enough waste to keep it running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Otherwise, it costs you too much money to start it back up again. Because get the flue temperature hot enough to get rid of that. But anyway, it is disappointing that we're not as far along as we are, but we are definitely moving.
When has the one in Durham been going? It's been
Durham, York?
Yeah.
I think it's close to 10 years now. I'm not 100% sure on that, but Durham, York, there's the day that it lit the fires, they were too small. They had more waste than what the plant could handle.
Really?
And that's why they recommended that we double our size to handle. And since we sent out the newsletter, we have got 3 municipalities want to join us now. So I think that once they see it getting closer, and everybody will want to get in, and that was one of the discussion that one we had in the past is the one lady used it as an analogy of a bus. When do you say no, our bus is full? Yeah. Or when do you just say that's it? We can't take any more on, and if you do, we're going to take you on as a customer, not as a partner.
So what do they burn? They burn like everything? What do they burn exactly?
Well, mainly household waste is what the proposal is, but I mean they could burn, again, like the one in Durham, York, the guy that runs the mixing and loads the kiln, he gets paid by the amount of energy it produces. So if he keeps it up, so if he starts to see that, like in the spring when you're starting to get a lot of, or in the summer when you get lots of greens, your energy starts to go down, they'll pick up they're going to get a couple of railroad ties and chuck them in, and then all of a sudden your caloric value goes up, or a bale of straw, or plastic from ag plastic that can't be processed, you know, that's too dirty or
Do
too.
they do paper at all, or?
Yeah, they'll burn
The
it.
reason I'm asking from where that is, and 35 years ago, 30-some years ago, I did the recycling mill in just outside of Oshawa, in Oshawa, right on the Thornton Road there. And I always remember they were trying to get enough newsprint and stuff, and they ended up having to bring it in from New York, because they had to get all the blue boxes. The blue boxes are just coming in, and I'm just wondering if they're burning that, or, you know, 'cause
Well, I mean, they still say though that waste to energy facility, your recycling still stays high, if not goes up, because quite often they'll do like Lethbridge has a full-blown MRF, and some places put a dirty MRF on, so it's just mechanical, and then they separate anything that's good. But any bad plastics or any bad cardboards, you know, that stuff that
Yeah.
cannot be recycled, instead of burying it, it goes right into the
Okay.
kiln. So.
What is the impact environmentally, like from the emissions from it? Because I can't decipher that from the document. So I
Well,
was just kind of wondering.
Again, the one that's in Durham, York, produces less pollutants than a vehicle does in Durham, York. So they're very high, and that's the advantage of being able to run 24/7, is because then you can get the temperatures high enough that you burn off those. And some of the newer ones, they have scrubbers on them, so they'll start taking some of those chemicals off and reusing them. So like even on some of them now, like we're talking about producing hydrogens and you know, so the CO2, you know, capturing, and so they're very, very high, and that's one advantage of them is to keep that energy as high as you can, but yet keep your pollutants as low as you can too.
You got super stacks.
Well, I was just kind of curious because
Yeah.
Many years ago, a couple decades ago, just touring in China, and they burn all their garbage in the gutters, right? And the pollution levels are astronomical.
Yeah.
So I was just kind of wondering how
Yeah, and
the
so
whole
that
process.
Kim kind of brought that one picture
Yeah.
up. As
Thank
it
you.
goes through there, it separates stuff out, and then it, you know, recombustions some of it, and removes some of the areas, and then so generally, like the one in Burnaby, Dwayne Hill and Ron Wickstrom, and they went and looked at it, and they said, you know, if you wouldn't have known that it was an energy from waste facility, you would never had a clue, because he says there's no smell to it. They, you know, where the pit is on the left-hand side there, they have negative pressure on it, so the air that's off that pit goes into the burner, and so it has no smell. You know, I mean, when you're in there, I'm sure it does have a smell in the pit area, but when you're outside, and so they're very clean. You know, in Europe, they've been using them for 50, 60, 70 years. There's one that's got a ski hill on top of it. It's, you know, they disguised it as a ski hill. So in Europe, they've been using these for, you know, good 60, 70 years, very successfully. And so that's anyway, that's what it would kind of look like. That's what it's proposed. Yeah. And we have a meeting again this week with the group from Switzerland, so they haven't invited me over yet, but anyway, so that's our roadmap. We weren't sure what to call it, but just to give everybody an opportunity to see where we're at and where we came from. Okay, anything else on any of the correspondence? If not, somebody wishes to move them to be filed. I'll take Joe Barber. Any discussion on Barbara's motion? Hearing none, we'll call the questions in favor. Opposed? Seeing none, it's declared unanimous. Okay, next one is, unfortunately, we have ran poor Judy out of her deputy mayor's position, and we've moved on to Cole. So the recommendation is in Cole's interest in the position, so is to swear him in. So
I'm going to apologize to Cole in front of council. My reminder came at the meeting, because I set the reminder that it was his meeting, last meeting, to take deputy mayor, and so it's not very helpful to get it during the meeting. So I called him afterwards and asked him if he was willing to take deputy mayor, and he said yes. So I moved it to this meeting, so he did lose 2 weeks.
You owe me the 2 weeks' wages
And
that I lost.
Oh, I didn't get that.
I definitely needed to publicly apologize to him.
Can't break your chain.
Oh,
Lyle did.
so anyway, we will, if this is, go ahead,
Can I make the
you
recommendation
betcha.
that council appoint Councillor Cole Dunham to the office of deputy mayor for the town of Vulcan for a term ending October 23rd, 2023.
Any discussion on Will's motion? Hearing none, all in favor? Is carried unanimously.
His
So
hand
that-
on up. It's like that a little bit.
You need to stand and read that oath.
Okay. I, Cole Dunham, swear that I will diligently, faithfully, and to the best of my ability execute according to law the office of deputy mayor for the town of Vulcan. So help me God.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Cole. You were deputy mayor.
Yeah, and, it's great, we used to revolve them off differently, and this process works quite well, I think, and everybody gets an opportunity to fit that, into that position if they wish. Okay, moving on to 6.2, the deck mower replacement. You can see that the price did come in very similar to what Kim thought, but unfortunately we only received one quote.
To the best of our knowledge, the other quotes didn't come because they couldn't get machines, so they didn't bother to quote. So
So anyway, we need a motion to, Judy?
I'll make a motion that council award the mower tender to Brandt Tractor Vulcan for a 2023 John Deere 1550 front mount deck mower for the tender price of $40,947.98, with the funds to be drawn from the Common Services Capital Reserve.
Great, thank you. Any discussion on Judy's motion?
When we get that GST back, does that go back into capital or how?
Yeah.
How does that work?
yes, and so we get the GST back and then put it back to reserve.
Okay.
We draw as little out of the reserve as possible.
Okay, any other questions? Here now I'll call the question, those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, it's carried unanimously. Okay, moving on to the Wispering Willows sewer project. So administration, Kim has come up with a borrowing bylaw.
Sorry, we just have to do the local improvement. There's 3 options that I've put together for you. You all had a chance to read the report. Really, it comes down to borrowing. When you borrow, even if we didn't borrow, you pulled it from reserves, you're basically borrowing from yourself for that. So the local improvement should have an interest rate on it. Because of the cost of this, we've got our cost estimates from SEMA. The plan, I put together a 15, a 20, and a 25-year plan just based on the interest rate. When we talk about 5% and the adjacent property owners being responsible for 100% of it, you can see it's a significant amount of money. Borrowing $180,000 over 25 years for the project adds an additional cost of $145,000 to the cost of this project. So it takes the cost. So I also added, this is not part of what will be in the bylaw, should you move forward, but I put so that you could very quickly see the local improvement cost per lot over the 25 years. If they were to pay it outright, the cash cost, it would be $11,000. In 25 years, the total cost to them would be $20,000. If you go to 20 years, again, the cash cost stays at 11, the local improvements goes to 18, and if you go to 15 years, the cash cost obviously stays at 11, and the costs drop significantly to $16,000. So you're paying over the 15 years, you pay an extra $6,000, five and change. So the other side of that is how much do you want to put on per year per lot? Because the cost at 15 years is $1,000, the cost at 20 years is $910, or the cost at 25 years is $814.
When I was going over this, I think 15 years to me looked better because of it's a lot less money. And I think there's less burden on the property owners and our borrowing.
I agree with Barbara, because these are developed lots. I would imagine that developers don't want to be holding on to these for 20 to 25 years. I think the goal is to sell them as soon as possible. So I think if we do that, I think 15 years makes more sense, and really it's only a couple $100 per lot for the difference, so that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, and I think there was a comment made, I think it was Richard that made it about, it affects our borrowing ability by shortening it to 15 too. It does help us in the future. It does go back to these lot owners, but again, when you take a look at it, almost doubles the cost of that project. It almost doubles to put it on 25 years. I mean, it's astronomical. I mean, and I guess the only problem we might have would be is that if someone wanted to come out outright and pay it outright and not,
So,
sorry, Cole.
no, go ahead. So to address that, being the low cost on this to affect the borrowing bylaw, council does have money in reserve, so you don't need to borrow that money, but you should put an interest rate on it. And so I calculated these at the interest rates for the respective borrowings from, if we were to borrow it from Alberta Capital Finance.
Right.
So the cost on a 15-year is 5.02, 20-year is 5.15, and 25 is currently at 5.23. When council does this, you would just match whatever loan to whatever rate is. Again, you as council, if you don't borrow the money, have the right to put whatever interest rate you would like on it. So that's something to keep in mind.
Okay, Cole, you have a comment?
Yeah, I was just gonna comment on the interest, whether it was variable or fixed, but you kind of answered that there, so. But I don't know, I agree with the shorter term, it's the most economical, and with interest rates going up, it's gonna be, or maybe they're not going up, I hope they're not anymore, but you never know, right? So,
Well, and I think that's the unfortunate problem about when we do borrow from Alberta Capital, is that it is fixed for the period of it for 25 years or 15 or whichever it is, and it's fixed for that same amount. If it goes down, you're unlucky, and if it goes up, you're lucky. And so,
and also no advantage to paying it off early. Once you lock in, that's the term, and it's, so we currently have, you guys every year see our debt documents. We have loans that we're paying at 8% on some.
yeah.
And that's because that's where it was at the time when the loans were taken.
Okay, Barbara?
Is it possible to speak with the landowners to see if they would like to pay anything upfront prior to actually making a motion to borrow?
Right.
Or have you had that conversation?
So what you do from here is send out the local improvement plan for their feedback. So really at this point, all you're doing is approving the plan at whatever it is. And the letter that we send out has the plan itself, the properties that are affected. It shows all of these costs, and then it also has a sheet that we ask them to return that asks whether they would consider paying the cash price, or if they would like it spread out over whatever term you guys decide. So 8, 15 years.
Yeah, so say 50% of it, someone wanted to pay up front for their lots, so that's 50% of the cost. Then is it possible that we could only do the other 50% on our borrowing rather than committing to borrowing 100% at, say, the 15 years at this time?
Yeah, so what you do is from there you do your calculation on what is needed to borrow, those sort of things, because those costs, if somebody's paying, you can pay a local improvement out completely at any time, but if you do it after the first year, then you're on the hook for the insurance. So, or sorry, for the interests. Yeah.
So Lyle made a comment earlier there, if the owners of the land sold that property, they would have that ability to either pay it out or roll it over to whoever they're gonna sell it to. So I mean, there could be a local improvement on somebody's property for the next 20 years or 15 years, or they could pay it out. So that would be a negotiable thing that they would do between the landowner of it presently and whoever they sell to it as a developer. So. And we've got to remember, this is just strictly for the sewer line. It's not for the water line or the sidewalks or the streets or all those other improvements. And that'll be up to the developer who owns those pieces of property.
So it's up to the developer to put the water in?
Yep, it's up to them to put the water, the sewer, the curb, the gutter, the road, streets, the whole works. And that's, on that other one that goes vertical there,
Yeah.
that's what they have done. They've already paid for their water, sewer, right to that point where Kim's got his arrow.
Yeah.
And so this, sorry,
No,
I was just gonna say, this map here is not really correct in that intersection, because if you look at the way the engineers drew it up, it's a little different than that. It's at a 90-degree angle with a manhole right there at 90. It doesn't 40, 22 and
Yeah, this map was taken out of our GIS that follows the road lines. And so this is the actual design map that CMA's put forward. And we're anticipating the cost to be lower, and that's why I'm saying to council, based on 180,000, they added a 20% contingency in here as well. So we could anticipate, depending on what contractor comes in, we may be able to do this significantly less. So with that, that's why we don't do the local improvement bylaw until the work is completed.
Yeah.
And it allows you to know where you're at for the homeowners paying for it, those sort of things.
So Wispering Mill will close like when lots 1029 through 1014. Who owns those right now?
They're a mixture.
A mixture, so okay. So we have no plans on those yet. Okay?
No, and really going back to the discussion from the last council meeting, what spurred this forward is obviously the development of the stuff that's already pre-done that has stop work orders. Really what council is doing is, because you cannot get a development agreement that includes all of the other owners, this is to spark so that this can start development, which then causes the other owners who now have a stake in it because they have a local improvement to get together and say, hey, how do we get the water in there? How do we sell our lots? And so that's really what we're trying to do, and that's why why it was brought to council.
Yeah.
Are you guys as council willing to throw the sewer line in there to spark the development and get everybody kind of on the same page? If not, again, the sewer line's there, at least you'll see development on the side that's already under the development agreement. And when Pristine Homes was here, one of the things that they indicated is, if this goes forward, then they'd be interested in getting a development agreement in place to try to do. Because he has contacted a couple of the other owners that are willing to work with them on that.
Okay. As far as I'm concerned, I agree with Barb. I think 15 is the way to go, because the cost of borrowing is so high in the other way, and the cost per lot is pretty negligible when you look at the cost over time. So I'm in favor of 15. That's where I stand.
okay. So Kim kind of drafted a bit of a motion there, and we just have to put how many years we believe that we should have there, and then we can move forward.
And I just did want to point out, just because I didn't put it in my report, just so that you know the process. If you approve the local improvement plan the way it sits, I distribute it to the affected owners. They have 30 days to reply. If they don't reply, they're in favor by not replying, and then we bring it back to council to put it out to tender and to move forward with the local improvement. So right now, you're just approving the plan to be sent out to the owners.
Okay.
But it will come back in a month's time for approval.
So we need a motion, I guess.
Yes, please.
So I would like to make a motion that council approves the 15-year local improvement plan for the installation of the sanitary sewer main line on Wispering Willow Lane, and direct administration to distribute the plan to the affected property owners.
Okay, thank you, Cole. Any discussion on Cole's motion? Hearing none, the call question in favor. Anybody opposed? Seeing none, it's declared unanimous. Okay, moving on to the encroachment agreement. Hopefully everybody's had an opportunity to read this over and take a look at the property or the pictures and Judy.
I think the fence looks good, it matches the shed in the back, so I make a recommendation that council approves the request for the town of Vulcan to enter into an encroachment agreement regarding the fence located on municipal land at 408 2nd Street South.
Okay, any discussion on Judy's motion?
I was just wondering if there is anything else.
I, if anything else could be done?
Just any comments from Kim about?
Oh,
Yeah, so, based on a report, we put this together, this was put forward to us by North and Company from the owner. The fence has half, as you can see from the photos that were taken and the report that we put together, half of this fence has already been removed. And they bought it knowing that it was encroaching. We try to work, we haven't done an encroachment agreement for a long time in the town, based on it's easier when people are buying houses, those sort of things. Move the fence 5 feet and then it's in compliance and then it in the right spot forever. So that's kind of where we were with this. When it first came in, that's why we did non-compliance. The encroachment agreement basically says the town's okay with the thing staying there till the end of time, if they don't do anything to it. Where in this case, they've already removed half of the fence.
yeah, it doesn't go all the way around the perimeter of the property.
No,
It only goes 5 feet on that right-hand side. When you're looking at the property, it only goes 5 feet back.
I think this kind of sets some bad precedents.
Well, we have set a couple in the past.
Well, I'm saying for us,
Yeah.
as a new-ish council, because I think that with having part of it having been removed already, it's not that hard to move that front part a little bit further back, honestly. And that's my personal opinion.
And five posts, 6 posts.
Exactly.
So go ahead,
Although
Judy.
we have rights to ask it to be removed later too.
Oh, yes,
in the
but
agreement.
I can show you an example in town where we gave them permission to leave the fence up. When the fence was going to be replaced, it had to be put back on the property line. They have left it there, built a new fence, tore down 3 trees on our boulevard because they're on their property now because they're within inside their fence, even though they are 10 feet into our property line. I think, Barbara's got a point there. We are setting the precedent. We've already done this 3 or 4 times, and it's come back to burn us on every one. I personally believe that this is an example where 80% of the fence is not there. Maybe not 80. At least 40% of the fence is not there. For them to move it for 6 posts, I think we just said sorry to that. It either is a non-compliance or you move it.
Sorry, I'm really bad at reading these things, so can you just scroll up to that picture and show me where
So right now,
I
this
can
is
see it?
this is the most recent real property report. So the fence that we're talking about is right here,
Right.
and it's only from here to here.
Mhm.
It used to run all the way around and to the house,
And part down.
but it's 5 feet off onto town property on the boulevard.
Mhm.
So this is the front yard, and so that's why we took this picture off of this is from Google Maps, which showed it when it was a full fence, and so we indicated out how much of the fence has already been removed. And really what they're asking for is town council's permission to enter into agreement to say that that can sit on the boulevard until it needs to be replaced or repaired, where administratively, we had the conversation that no, it should be moved, but of course, the owner can always bring things to council for approval.
Well,
And when this fence was originally put there, there would have been
nothing.
You don't have to take a permit for a fence anymore.
oh, really?
No, you can come in and check the rules, but we don't take permits for fence.
That's another mistake that we make, but anyway.
So, I have a question. Utility-wise underneath,
There should be none.
well, there's
Water
gotta
is-
be a drain and water line there.
Well, yeah, there's a water.
Right.
So if you wanna dig that drain and water line, you've limited yourself to room right now,
It's,
right?
it falls right basically where this hole. in the
Yeah,
fence
and
is.
room to dig that thing is pretty narrow. Now you take 5 feet out of it, it gets real narrow in a hurry. There's, you know, you have to tear up the sidewalk to do it. I mean,
So the big conversation is the use of a fence. So the fence, if it was enclosing the property and was keeping animals, things like that
Or
inside,
kids or
or
whatever.
kids, those
Yeah.
sort of things. I can see the encroachment because it betters the property to allow it to function better. But the fact is that this fence doesn't actually hold anything in. It's an aesthetic straight line, as Tom said, 6 posts. It doesn't enclose the yard at all because it's open just at the end of it. So if you're defining your property line, then it should actually be on the property line, so moving it back 5 feet would allow it to be there. If all it is aesthetics, it's just from our standpoint, when the property changed hands and they wanted compliance, we just couldn't give compliance based on the fence. So when they asked for the options, it was either move the fence or ask for an encroachment agreement. We never heard anything back, and then got something from North and Company saying that they would like to move forward with the encroachment agreement. So we brought it to council for that.
Cool.
These could be irrelevant questions, but why was partial bit of that fence removed?
That was up to the homeowners.
How old is that fence today?
It looks good.
Yeah, it's been there for a while. They just repainted it blue from the green that it was
Like it's
before.
not.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's not in bad shape.
No.
I mean, I just stopped yesterday and looked at it. It's not in bad shape. It's just that the part that bothers me the most is that we gave 3 other people allowances, and one has totally abused it, and shoved it in our face. And I think here's a prime example where we have an opportunity to do what's right, make them move it. Now, I appreciate if it was a little more difficult fence, or a fence that was of a different quality or caliber. You might say that, yeah, it's going to cost some substantial amount of money, but to dig 6 holes and get 6 guys to pick that fence up and move it 6 feet back or 5 feet back, I think is what we personally should do.
I agree.
But we've got a motion on the floor to approve this, and so
Vote accordingly. And
we can vote accordingly. I mean, is there more discussion on this motion? Okay, hearing none, we will call the question. Those in favor of Judy's motion? Opposed? Okay, it's defeated. So, it's 5 opposed and 3 in favor. 2 in favor, sorry, 2 in favor and 5 opposed. So it's defeated, so it,
Did you say 5 opposed?
no, 2 opposed,
Okay,
no,
so
2 in favor,
2 in favor.
and 5 opposed. I'm not sure.
The second one in favor, sorry, I missed.
Will.
Well, we,
Will and Judy were in favor, and Judy.
so we will send notice that it was denied.
Reason why, because on number 4, it says the privilege granted therein may be terminated any time by the town in the event the permitted encroachments are removed. So,
Right.
I mean, if it gets old and falls down, we can say, no, it has to go back. That's why I thought, you know what, it's in good shape.
But if you put the agreement in place, then they have something to argue back on that.
Yeah.
Council over the day
We always have
said
to
that
do
we
that.
could have the fence there, and if it's not the agreement that the fence should be there, then. So.
And again, I think what Will's comment too is that, you know, and again, I think that's a mistake that municipalities make, is because we do not ask them to take out a permit to build a fence, and we do not force them to put their fence on their property when they build them.
Which kind of makes it our fault that the fence is there.
To a degree, it is our fault, but to a degree, it isn't, because they should have come in and found out where they could build their fence, how high they can build their fence, and, you know, so that's up to the property owner too. But you know, it is disappointing that, you know, we have a lot that are encroaching, and then when there's a problem, when they go to sell it, they come back to us and say, now all of a sudden, you guys gotta clean this problem up quickly, because we're gonna sell the property. You know, and like I said, go ahead. No.
Well, I was just kind of going on, you were saying, like, we said, if we let this go, and there's an encroachment agreement, then on Friday evening, 5 p.m., just before a long weekend, the neighbor decides they're gonna stick up a fence, and they're gonna put it the same setback as theirs, then we're gonna have a kerfuffle. I mean, I think it would be, like I say, with the fence partially there, I think it makes more sense to do that now. Otherwise, what's the use of having an encroachment?
Right. Cool.
Well, and this is quite common in the country too, when you use an existing fence line to keep cattle, because it's been there 100 years.
Yeah.
Somebody buys it, and you're like, oh, you're 10 feet over. Well, I guess I'm putting in a new fence. So, I mean, I don't know why anyone would build a structure that, without having land surveyed or whatnot, to make sure it's on your property, but.
Well, and in defense of some of them too, though, it wasn't until probably 10 years ago, last 10 years, that they never really worried about whose fence it was.
Yeah.
Is it really your fence or is it my fence? Like, we're neighbors, you know, who's really, so they really didn't care that much about it, but lately, they're more,
It's like in the
More
subdivision, where my parents' house, all of our fences are all connected. It's all one fence.
Okay.
Really, all the neighbors.
Yeah.
so anyway, it's was denied, so Kimmel, and I appreciate your philosophy of why.
We also, and we haven't brought encroachment agreements, we did for a while, we were doing them just, it seems like every meeting. We haven't brought them back as we've been administratively trying to limit those two things that can't be moved fairly easily, like garages, those sort of things, so. And we've been slowly been able to bring things into compliance, so.
I mean, we've got a garage that's gonna come to us one day, probably, hopefully not this council, but down the road, and that garage is substantially out in the alley, substantially, and it's gonna be a real bugbear. Because again, you know, it's a garage, it's got a cement floor that's, you know, a full-blown structure. This one here has got 6 posts.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a real hard job to move it, but anyway. I think we've beaten that one up by now. Okay, moving on to committee reports, the attraction and retention. Lyle spoke about this last meeting, I believe, and any questions on anything on it? Okay, moving on to the Marquis Foundation, and again, Judy highlighted all of those things that has been going on with the Marquis Foundation. Any question on hers? Okay, if not, we'll move on to Orsk. This one here is Richard's. Any questions on the one that he went out for supper? Judy?
Just, will any of our fees increase, like what we pay towards Orsk, I'm assuming, because they gave a raise to their people and to membership fees are raised? I just wanna know how much, you know?
Fees will be going up, that was brought up at that meeting. Fees, to cover costs on labor, to cover costs on everything. I think they're going back to a 3rd car as well now, so, because when COVID was on, they went from 3 to 2, because they just need 2, so I think they're gonna be going after a 3rd car as well. Yeah, it's, like everything, costs are going up.
You just don't know how much right now.
Well, I do have it actually in, I could figure out how to get to it.
No, I
It's
just
in one
thought
of
maybe
my-
you might have it, so
I have it,
curious.
yeah, it might be in this book, I can check here.
We budgeted for, I believe it was 5%.
5%.
Is what we did preliminarily already, and the other costs that they're talking about, subdivision fees and that, those all go to the applicants, so we don't pay any of those, so it's just our membership side.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, any other questions on either of those 3? If not, somebody wish to move the committee reports? Barbara? Okay, any discussion on Ryder's motion? Hearing none, we'll call the question in favor. Anybody opposed? It's carried unanimously. Okay, moving on to Councillor Reports. Councillor Magnuson.
I had no meetings since the last council meeting, just a couple of things. We did have a negative comment regarding the sewer line thing on social media, but I see the person took the post down. I'm sure they were very busy and did not read the whole newspaper article that was posted, so otherwise we've had favorable comments on that. And the only other thing is talking with business owners, some business owners downtown, concerns with large tractor trailers going down back alleys by the, well, there's one has hit my building, and it hit the building on the other side too by the registries. So actually contacted Gabby, and she's checking into that. She didn't, I don't think she can do anything about it, but she was going to look at it and figure out who to talk to just regarding that, because it seems down the back alleys is probably not the best place for large trucks. And I think we ran into that with
They're doing deliveries.
yeah.
They can't deliver to the front doors of stores.
But I guess the concern is with the size of the trucks going down back alleys, like if we can't make the turns, hitting anything, there should be some protection there for the owners of the buildings.
I know a lot of them will go up by FCSS and turn because it's a wider turn there, because that's where the fire trucks came out. And then they try to go straight down, but if it's a new truck driver, they're probably going. So if they could catch them, maybe they could have them go up and they go back down to back alleys, right?
Yeah, well, I think the best, at least the people I talk to, the best thing, we'll talk to the bylaw officer and see what we can do. It's just a concern that they had, because they obviously don't want a truck or a trailer going through the side of their wall. That would be a bit of a shocker.
And you can contact, and again, if Gabby's able to put stuff together with that, that's the same as an accident. So if they hit the building, they're liable for their insurance and that too.
I guess the concern too was they were at the sidewalk, and then there's a light, the town has a light pole there too that they're rushing up against, so that's why, as a councillor, can't talk against for sure. But that's all I have.
Okay, any questions for now? Hearing none, thank you. Moving on to Councillor Reports.
I had a horse meeting on the 2nd of the month. They were showing a new GIS system. They were getting ready using the guy that was given it, said it was very difficult. He was given examples, and basically, for example, he gave an example of a hydrant in the middle of the street in Sterling, and so it was fictitious, and you could punch in that hydrant, it would come up, it would show, it would create a work order for your maintenance crew. It would tell how many times it's been maintained, what's gone wrong with it, so you could make a decision if you want to replace it. It would probably be pricey for a town our size, I would imagine. It was kind of interesting. It showed the graveyard, and somebody asked about does it give a name of the person in there, and all of a sudden Trudeau's picture popped up, which of course was too, couldn't let that one go. But anyways, it was quite interesting. It does follow the whole thing. Every area has, every street has its own little program, and you can go street by street. That was kind of interesting, but even the guy giving it said it was quite intense to use. He was still learning on it. Talked about the municipal development trends, permitting and all this stuff coming, legal stuff coming. They're hiring a new planner. They've hired a new planner, I should say, and they've hired an intern for 18 months. They got a $60,000 grant from the government to pay for that, so, yeah, just basically that, I found the GIS thing quite interesting. I imagine it would be quite pricey, but might be, thank you.
We do have the cemetery one.
Yeah, and it's, it was kinda interesting, but it's, that was about it. Just went over the budget. That was,
That's the cemetery.
Yeah, you can bring up who's in what plots, what
Yeah.
plots are available, those sort of things. We've been using
see
that
your names
for
on
quite a
it?
bit.
Mine's already open.
So, what they're adding is on the infrastructure side, so we already have, I can bring up, just to clarify on what Richard was talking about, we can put in the water, bring up all of our fire hydrants, water valves, curb stops,
Yeah.
those sort of things. And what they're doing is they're actually adding asset IDs to them so that we can, so that you can actually do a work order off of them.
yeah.
Again,
Cool.
how much they'll get used
That's kinda,
is depending on the input. It took us a long time to get all this stuff put in. We have actually now, this is a curb stop. We've actually put in where you can, we can actually go in and look up the original cards that we had for the curb stops, so that we know where, when snow's on the ground or when
Yeah.
trees grow, those sort of things, so, yeah, we have that all in there now. So,
does that tell you, like, can you put in all your jogging valves in the street? Can you mark that onto the valve and,
yeah,
Yeah.
that's, there it is right there, view additional details, so that's a water valve, on the main. And, it's got an asset value of $1,400.
Yeah.
So we're starting to get the information in, but it takes a long time to put all that in.
So when they do a new street though, they add it automatically,
Yeah.
then like when we do this new sewer line, they'll set those elevations and the whole works on it, but to go back and redo it all,
that
I
would be
think
a
is
lot of
what,
work.
I think is what you're saying too.
Yeah,
It's a
it
lot
would
of
be,
work. and-
yeah. It was quite interesting, though, it was interesting systems. Take a smarter guy than me to run it, though.
Okay, anything else for you, Richard?
That's
Any
it.
question for Richard? Okay, thank you. Moving on to Councillor Smith.
I haven't had a meeting since the last council meeting I attended. I was supposed to have a community futures meeting, but I was working nights that day, so I wasn't able to make it. Haven't had much else going on. I did have a comment about 3 weeks ago about snow removal in Allen Crescent near Cedar Drive in that little D. They told me that they hadn't had any snow removal all winter, and I went and looked after the first snowfall 3 weeks ago, and I actually there was a lot of snow there, but like Willow Road and everything around there had been done. I told them there's probably a good reason for it, and I told them I'd figure it out. So it's
Just the amount of traffic and where the equipment is. We just make sure that everybody can get to point A to point B, so.
that's what it was like. There's not really a lot of traffic going through there, so probably not their highest priority. For sure. Everything else though, I mean, snow removal in town is awesome. See the guys out on the weekend right after the snow, so.
That's all, that's,
Okay, any questions for Will? If not, thank you. Moving on to Councillor Sanderson.
On February 28th, I had a Marquis Foundation meeting. We had an audit that was presented to us, Mutton and how was Michaelis, is that how you say that? For 2022, we found an error, and there was one year before, so we might be looking around. Vulcan County Emergency Services inspection was made for 2023. 7 policies were approved. New ones keep popping up. We had a boiler inspection, and it was noted that the boiler insulation, I even got pictures of it, is all it's cracking and chipped. It's 30 years old. Pressure release need to be replaced, and pressure bypass valve shows signs of leaking. So we're getting quotes from some of the local plumbing to see, we don't want to replace it all, especially if we're looking at, you know, down the road. We don't want to be putting a ton of money into that building, so, but that does need to be replaced definitely, so we'll get some quotes on that. We had a closed meeting. We're going to sign a new contract again with Derek Lees. He's been a great help getting us to the point where we are now. And now that we have a project manager hired, he's going to be a great benefit there too. March 3rd, senior housing with Lori Wickman, Kim, Nels, and myself from 8:30 to 4. That was a long day. We interviewed 4 companies to be our project manager. They were really, really good. All of them were really good, but 3 of us had same, I think, top 2. But all of us were in favor of this one company, and I don't know if it's been announced yet, so I guess I shouldn't release the name. But I think we did a really good job with going with them. So the name was sent back to Marcus to approve, which we have already done. So March 7th, had a special victim services meeting at the county at 5:30. It was a closed meeting for an hour and a half, and I think we had everybody there too, and even Brent Friesen came, which was really appreciated because he was on his off-duty hours. So it was a good meeting. It needed to be had, so we've got a few things settled. There, March 10th, at 11, we had a building meeting via Teams with our new project manager and Derek Lees, and for a mini kickoff, and there'll be a big kickoff. I don't know if it's this week or next week. I think they're moving fast, so I wouldn't be surprised if it's not this week. Lots of info was given and received. They need a lot of information from us, and I think Ian, has he got in contact with you already?
I sent them.
Thank you. Things will move fast through this next phase to gather information, applicants to the government for more funding, and to go out to contractors to see costs and get that kind of stuff done. They're an awesome, upbeat group of people. Kim and Nels did ask not to be involved at this point portion because they're very, very busy, but they're there for information for us, so we greatly appreciate that. So we brought on Kelly Nelson and Kim Nichols. She's the mayor of Harmongate, and so they graciously accepted that. So we will keep you updated as that goes, and it's moving pretty fast, so should have more information for you next time. And just a huge thank you from SESS for the town supporting them in their request for wage increases. We have been advised by the government that money has been released. We don't know how much we're going to get yet, but FCSS is on that to help support wages. So depending on how much we get back, we will be reimbursing the municipalities that supported us through this, so that you will get money back once we know how much we're getting. So to the state, we don't know yet. And that's it.
Any questions for Judy? If not, thank you, Judy. Moving on to Councillor Magnuson.
I only had one meeting, which was the Balkan Regional Response to Elder Use Council, such a long name, on March the 8th. And so the minutes will be for next meeting. Yeah. And I really appreciated the town plowing my back alley on a Sunday. That was amazing. Actually, I wasn't expecting it till like Monday or Tuesday, till like garbage day, but I was quite impressed. So that's all I have.
Okay, any questions for her? No, thank you. Moving on to Councillor Dunham.
I haven't had any meetings. A few people have given me feedback also about snow removal. I don't know, today I just gave an example of my work day. Was I spent 2 hours plowing out a bin yard. By the time I went and got my truck, it had blown in and I got stuck. So I mean, the elements change, so it's not just snowfall, it's wind and everything. I don't know, I kind of liked it before my cul-de-sac was plowed out by the town because everybody had to drive slow. Yeah, I don't know, that's it. And I attended the skate carnival last week, and I couldn't believe how busy it was in that bad weather, so it was really well done. The rink
I think the rink's been a big success this year, so
Yeah.
that's it.
And the Zamboni was nice and quiet when it was
Yeah.
going around.
Yeah,
That was
you
nice.
can tell does a better job.
Yeah.
Their ice
It
is
does.
way better.
The ice looks really good.
That's
Even
good.
after the first go around they had, I was looking at it. It's crazy.
Okay, any questions for Cole? No, thank you. I had a couple, the SEWA, meeting, and, again, like I was saying, we've got 2 coming up this week, and we've got, meeting with the, group from Switzerland, so, things are progressing with it. Went to Mayors and Reeves at Lethbridge, and again, I brought back that, that information was brought back for the Grant Hunter, and again, I told him I appreciated him taking the time to put it in print and it's for everybody so we can share it, and again, he said that if you guys have any questions, definitely get a hold of all of them. I know that they're going to be shortly into their political role of running for the election coming up, but they definitely appreciated any input that we give them. So there were 17 people at the meeting, and then there was 17 online, and I think it's the same thing with the guys that are all online. They're having some issues hearing the OWL system that they are using down there, and they've got to do something a little better for that. The majority of the information that came from the MLAs, because there was only 2 of them, Grant Hunter and Nathan Newdorf, is just talking about the budget, and what the budget hopefully is going to do for all of us. And again, with the letter that we received, they're trying to do the MSI. I know it's got a bunch of other letters now instead of MSI, but the old MSI. They're going to try and relate it to how much money they have in their budget. How much, if there's a surplus, well, or years are better. But Nathan Newdorf said that if all the requests were made, were approved in this budget, they'd have to increase the budget by $50 million. $50 billion is what the requests were made. He says it's unbelievable.
50 billion?
$50 billion. He says it's unbelievable how much requests are made that, there's just no way that they could ever. And he says no matter what we do, we're going to pick the wrong, So he said we hope that we pick the majority of the rights. But anyway, it was a good meeting. And again, with the SEWA project, we do have a couple of municipalities that have asked to come back on, and so we're trying to get back to our agreement of how that works. I did go, Lyle put it on, the photo for the ice surfacer, the county was there, the town, and we had it out on the ice, and like Cole said, it's quite quiet. The noisiest thing now is the
Tires.
The tires are pretty noisy on it as they're going around it. The guys, exactly what you said, Will, is that it has, I think everybody heard it, but it has a wash system on it, so they wash the ice and then they recirculate that water, and so it makes it cleaner, and so hopefully it'll be a huge plus. The other thing that I was at the carnival, and obviously they got the amplifiers replaced because the sound was, it was even so much more superior than it was when they did that benefit. You knew that the amplifiers were on their last days, but I'm sure they were probably just trying to hold them out until. But the sound system is definitely much better, and that's pretty well it for me. I saw Judy at the skating carnival too. So
Cheering my granddaughter.
that's right. Kids did really good. I mean, really. And it's nice to see a good number of kids out for the. It just goes to show, hopefully, and like Cole had said too, and Will had said that it's hopefully that it's going to be a good year for the arena, and maybe next year will be another great year again too. So, any questions for me on any mine? Okay. If not, somebody wish to move the Councillor Reports. Will? Any discussion on Will's motion? Okay, now I'll call the questions in favor. Opposed? It's carried unanimously. Okay, moving on to action list.
So as you can see, everything was completed from the last council meeting. So unless there's any questions on the report of outstanding items, we can move on to my CAO report.
Okay.
So, it's been a busy couple of weeks, as Judy mentioned. Did quite a bit of work with the Marquis Foundation for the owner representation services. So we conducted interviews that took up a whole day. Of course, new project managers in place pending Marquis Foundation approval. So they've been reaching out for a whole bunch of information, which town holds. We had environmental studies, technical on the lot, the legal survey, all that for the property that's proposed. So I made sure to get that all to them. And we did, now that we've got to the project manager stage, from an administration standpoint, it was asked to the committee to, because it was chewing up a fair amount of time. So we've asked to be removed from that, and we'll provide the support that we would normally do through administrative means. So continuing to work with CPR. Still don't have a proposal for you, but we're working on it. The new pricing we got was outrageous again, and they want a clarification on who can apply for the exemption. They kind of put it back on us to apply for an exemption, but that didn't make sense because the document they sent us said that only the railroad could ask for an exemption. So we're still working on getting that clarified. I've completed the media releases, obviously did the pictures for the ice resurfacer, so we'll be able to submit all that to the MCCAC, and I had a conversation with Logan, everything looks good, so hopefully they'll forward funding right away for that. Got upgrades from SEMA on the sports court and the Willow Roads update as well. Did the tender opening for Public Works again. Didn't take us very long with only the one. I've also been working with North and Company to try to do a draft land purchase agreement for the industrial, based on some of the comments that council made about tying it to development agreement and possibly see if we can return the land if the conditions aren't followed. So I'm trying to get that agreement right, because Lyle has been in his other career asking if he's had some people interested in some lots, so I just want to make sure I have that ready to go when we do have an offer. And working with Palliser, so that council knows, because I know Councillor Bolt's been sitting on the joint use. Palliser is going to come to us as a municipality for a joint use planning agreement. So it's going to be aside from our regular joint use. This is the one that the province is mandating, just like our intermunicipal development plans and all these things. It's just on paper that we'll work together for joint use and planning. So what I had a quick conversation with Dexter. He's hoping to bring forward something fairly quickly, even if our new joint use agreement isn't done, that will reference the current the existing joint use, or a new one as an appendix to it. So it'll still give you guys some time to work on a good joint use that works for both parties. But they do have a deadline of June for this other one to come forward. So I will be bringing that forward as soon as it comes up. My formal meetings, obviously, SEMA for the cost estimates, Municipal Affairs. I attended their budget review. There was a doubling of our MSI operating, so that'll we'll talk about when we talk budget, because that's the one that comes directly into our operating budget. So
we weren't expecting that, were we?
no, that was unexpected. So the rest of it, MSI stayed the same. There was a slight increase to the Canada Building Fund, but ours equates to about $11,000. So on 100, it wasn't a huge increase. So the Marquis Foundation I've already talked about with that. It invited the county and the mayor for photos with the ice resurfacer for our press release. And then we had our auditors in the office for 2 days this week as well, going through everything. When they left Thursday, they were smiling, so that's a good sign. And they were actually, anecdotally, they work with 7 municipalities that are currently going through transition of finance, their key finance people. And they were quite pleased that we actually had a plan. So they worked well with Amanda going through the transition. Janice kind of helped her through the questions, and they all seemed very comfortable with that when they were here, so it was nice to see. And that is my report, unless there's any questions.
Okay, no questions, so we'll move on to the development officers. Any questions on Rita's?
The hotel that she's mentioning, is that a real possibility, or?
If we can do a feasibility study, that's the
Big kicker.
That's the big one with an approximate cost of $10,000, so we're actually looking for grounds right now for that. It would be, if they were more excited, they may be willing to split the cost or do it themselves, so we're cautiously optimistic.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Okay, if not, we'll move on to Public Works.
Not on his report, but as it mentioned, Stu was out on the weekend with his crew. He has been short-staffed with this week with the guys taking their training in Banff for keeping their water certificates up, so he's a little bit short right now, but
Do you know what the cost of a 40-foot flagpole? Like I see that one is $24.62.25.
oh yeah.
So is that
remember when he got
normal?
remember when he got his last prices? They were over 4,000.
Over 4,000. So they're just going to do a test with this one,
Yeah,
see if it holds up.
they
to
had
the-
this one made,
Yeah,
and we'll see how it works out.
fingers crossed.
Yeah, absolutely.
I thought it was cheaper, but I couldn't remember.
Yeah, the last cost, they were 3, and by the time we finished budget, they were almost 4.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions on Stu's? If not, we'll move on to the community services managers.
All I can say is that man must be really busy.
Yeah, does a good job.
He does a great job.
Yeah.
He's bringing lots of new ideas for
Yeah.
there'll be some stuff as we shift from winter into summer with the tourism center opening. You're probably going to see, Chris has been talking to me an awful lot about bringing proposals. The marketing side from his previous experience of his previous job is really going to come out through, I think, on the tourism side. So he's going to bring some proposals for different things to bring people in. So.
Call.
I read in here, he sent an application to cover Stampede Parade. Is that something we're doing again?
Yes, well, at this point, look at Tom, that's a lot of work for you.
We're excited.
Tom's excited.
At this point, Chris is actually going to come to council to talk about organizing parades and how we want things brought to council, because remember last year they started piling up fairly quick. He would like to put together, if this is something that council is wanting to do ongoing, putting a schedule together and doing the applications prior.
Well, this one here is, sorry, Barb, this is one that Calgary Stampede that they have to get in
It
early.
needs to be done early.
Last year, we kind of got in on the last of it, and that was partly why we were at the very end of the parade route too, but, so I think that they sent it out, and so he thought, well, you can always say no, but it's harder sometimes to get back in.
Yeah.
So, anyway, Barbara, sorry.
I think that if we are doing a lot of the parades again like we did last year, I don't know, like, did we compensate you for any of your gas? Cause I think that's something that.
No, we did discuss that a little
Yes,
bit. so-
and we've talked about that and bringing that forward as a proposal for volunteers for time travel.
Okay.
Between, and that will come as a discussion for council to lots.
Okay, cause
For that.
Tom does a lot of work with that.
But anyway, yeah, so, but that was part of the thing too, is like last year, we didn't get it in as early as we had thought, and so I think that's partly why he wanted to get it at least in and say that, hey, we're interested, and then we go in there.
They sent out the information and asked if they're interested. He came in and said, I said, well, we can always put our name down, we can always pull out if council's not supportive of it, but can't be the last application again, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So,
Okay, any other questions on Chris's? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the peace officers. Okay, any comments or questions on Gabby's?
She been doing foot patrols and stuff.
Foot patrol, mostly dealing with sidewalks and that right now. Just, it's been ongoing. There's a few folks in town that have indicated that they're over the weeks now. But contradicts directly with our bylaws.
Okay, any other questions on Gabby's? Okay, moving on to fire chiefs.
We have a fire chief?
Yeah, it came late.
Oh, I didn't, guess,
I didn't
I didn't log out.
I'll send it to us.
We updated this morning, so I had to re-download your agenda.
It was a long read, this one.
Okay, any questions on dues? If not, somebody wish to move the, okay, Richard? Administration reports? Any question on Richard's motion? Hearing none, I'll call the question in favor. Opposed? It's carried unanimously. Okay, proposed meeting, there is none, adjourned. Well, yeah, we missed you last meeting.
You was back here for at least 2 hours to figure it out.
All in favor of the,
I watched you. I was kind of upset that you did it. I was hoping anyone but Richard.
okay, thank you very much, everybody.